Good evening. Welcome to the March 21st meeting of the Yakima School Board. Before we begin, let me remind you, we do have translation services from Andromeda Interpreting. If you are in person tonight and need translation, we have devices you can use. Please check in with Liz for a device. ¿Hay personas aquí que necesitan traducción? Okay. If you are tuning into the live stream, there is a Spanish live streaming link to tune into these services. You can find this on our website. We offer live streaming options for this meeting. You can find the link on our webpage under Find It Fast. There are two options for public comment. The first option is for comment on agenda items only. And the second option, toward the end of the meeting, is for any other topic. There are two things to sign if you'd like to speak tonight: a sign-in form itself and the guidelines for presenting. If you are interested in past meetings, you can find a link on the webpage to the Yakima School District YouTube channel to view past meetings that were recorded and posted there. Liz, would you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Here.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Here.
Here. President Walker,
Here. And Director Villanueva will be joining us shortly virtually. So next up, we have a student from Nob Hill. His name is Wes Nelson. Would you like to introduce Wes?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Erin Thomas. I am the proud principal at Nob Hill Elementary. And tonight I have one of my brilliant first graders. His name is Wes Nelson. Wes was just recently a national winner for Imagine Math. In a year, a student usually passes 30 lessons, and in a 2-week period of time, he passed 40. So we're very proud of him, and he is here to lead us in the pledge tonight.
Everyone, please stand. Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are you kidding?
Sometimes, Wes, some of the school board like to say a word or two to you, so they might ask you a question or two. Okay. So, Brian, did you have anything?
Mr. Nelson, what's your favorite thing about Nob Hill Elementary?
That we learn about teachers and math.
Awesome. Thank you for being here tonight.
Martha?
Hi, Wes. It's kind of loud, isn't it? Yeah. Congratulations on your achievement with that Imagine Math. That's quite an accomplishment.
Thank you.
Did you get anything special because you won that?
Yeah,
What did you get?
a new backpack
Nice.
and a Kindle Fire.
Wow.
Ooh, a Kindle
Even
Fire.
better. That's very nice. How do you, Mrs. Thomas, do you know how many students are involved in Imagine Math across the country? Because it was a national award, right?
Right. Yeah, there's 10 million students that are using Imagine Math.
Ah.
I'm not even making that up.
And you're the first, you're number one out of 10 million.
I was one of the group children that were chosen.
Nice.
Wow.
I bet everybody's proud of you at Nob Hill, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of guess that probably math is your favorite subject.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you get a little bit older, you can come and help us. Because for many of us, math is not our favorite subject.
Do you like send us the address?
What, honey?
The address.
The address?
Yeah. No, the address to here. No, like the address to this place.
Well, we'll get it to Mrs. Thomas and she can get it for you too. Okay?
Okay.
We're very happy for you and very happy to have you here.
Mr. Nelson, my name is Raymond.
Hi, Raymond.
Hello. I'm so happy that you're here with us. Thank you so much for being with us today and leading us in the pledge. You know, in my lifetime, and I'm getting old, I've only met 3, maybe 4 math whizzes. And today I have the honor and privilege of meeting a 4th math whiz. So it just makes me happy to know that you love math and that you've excelling in math, and keep working hard, keep doing your thing in math, and the backpack will turn into bigger things, right? Big scholarships. And
Yeah, I agree with that.
all right, so keep it up. Good job and congratulations, and thank you for being here.
And we already talked a little bit, Wes, but I'd want to thank you again for being here with us. I have one question for you. What's the first book you're going to load on your Kindle Fire?
I don't know.
I don't know. Okay. Well, good luck on finding lots of books that you like to read. Okay. And good luck at school the rest of the year. Now, you're welcome to stay for our meeting if you like meetings, but when you're finished, you're also welcome to head for home and do your homework and spend time with your family. And
I did my homework already.
all right,
Good for you.
you're a man after your teacher's heart. Huh? Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you for
Thomas.
being here.
Today, the schools of the Yakima School District rest on the ancestral lands of the 14 confederated tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation.
The people of the Yakima Nation inhabited more than 12 million acres.
Across Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Franklin, Grand, Kittitas, Cliticat, and Yakima counties.
Today we honor the Native people who are tied to the land through history, legends, and cultures.
We acknowledge their descendants who live in the world today.
We thank the caretakers of this land who have lived here and continue to live here since time immemorial.
An acknowledgement is a simple, powerful way to show respect.
Any step toward correcting the stories and practices that erase Indigenous peoples' history and culture.
It also honors the truth.
As a school district, we'll continue to build upon our relations with the Yakima Nation.
Thank you, Yakima students. Next up, we'd like to recognize a few honored guests tonight. We have some members of our Retired Teacher Association. We will be presenting you with something a little bit later in the program, but we're just glad. Raise your hand if you're a retired teacher out there. Okay, notice my hand is up too. I'm one of those too. So, all right, we're glad you're here. Thank you. Next up, we have a proclamation regarding Education Support Professionals Week. Is Graciela joined us yet? Okay. I'll go ahead and read that proclamation then. I have to make the print larger though. State of Washington Proclamation. Whereas education support professionals are involved in nearly every aspect of education, maintaining buildings and grounds, preparing and serving meals, keeping school facilities clean and orderly, assisting in the classroom, providing over 60% of all instructional hours to special education, English language learners, and opportunity gap students, performing and conducting research activities, providing information technology and media services, administrative support functions, and safe transportation, creating a secure and healthy environment, and many other specialized services. And whereas more than 62,000 education support professionals work with and help students in Washington's universities, colleges, and public schools, are the backbone of our public education system and deserve recognition and thanks for the outstanding work they do for this state and their communities. And whereas education support professionals are instrumental in fulfilling the state's responsibility to educate all students, and by supporting the learning environment, they serve as crucial partners with teachers, parents, administrators, and school boards. Now, therefore, I, Jay Inslee, Governor of the State of Washington, do hereby proclaim March 5th through 11th, 2023 as Education Support Professionals Week in Washington, and I encourage all people in our state to join me in this special observance. Signed the first day of March, 2023, Jay Inslee. And now Martha Rice will read a proclamation regarding our honored school retirees.
Thank you, Norm. It's my pleasure to be able to read this proclamation from the governor. Whereas Washington State recognizes the accomplishments of all retired school employees, and whereas it is important to acknowledge the importance of educating and assisting school retirees in meeting the special challenges retirement brings and work to improve their general welfare. And whereas school retirees and organizations like the Washington State School School Retirees Association, or WSSRA, aid in advancing education by supporting high educational standards. And whereas school retiree associations such as WSSRA promote group and individual involvement in charitable projects and activities, sponsor scholarships, and maintain interest and participation in education and community activities. And whereas retired educators are encouraged to remain active in the education profession through volunteer activities associated with learning. Now, therefore, I, Jay Inslee, Governor of the State of Washington, do hereby proclaim March 20 to 26, 2023 as School Retirees Appreciation Week. Wait a minute. In Washington, and I encourage all people in our state to join me in this special observation. Signed the 4th day of January, 2023. Jay Inslee, Governor of Washington.
Thank you, Martha. Along with this recognition, the Board of Directors urges community members to join them in expressing appreciation to our school retirees for their dedication and hard work and for their continuing support of education in Yakima County. And we have a number of names of the officers of the local association. We will read those names. If you're here, would you please come forward, and we have a certificate to present you, and just kind of make a circle around and we'll shake your hand and thank you. Okay. Starting with Martha, I believe you have 3 names to read.
Mm-hmm. Kathy Schultz, co-president of the Yakima County School Retirees Association. No. Nick Schultz, co-president. And Millie, thank you, Stengen. I don't think I would have gotten there. Millie Stengen, who is with the Sunshine Committee.
We also have Linda Trepanier, Secretary, Judy Markham, Communication, and Carolyn Wilson, Treasurer and Community Service.
Next, we have Sandy Gavin, Web Coordinator. Larry Show, Legislative Committee. Lori Garvin, Health Services. Okay.
Yes. Why don't you-
We'll get the certificate to you.
Yeah.
Trevor's got it.
And Norma Haney.
Next on the list is Peggy Young with the Social Committee. One retiree presenting to another. Jan Saxton, welcome and registration. And Linda Lockwood, welcome and registration.
The last three on our list begins with somebody that I'm going to take some personal privilege with. One of the finest history instructors anyone could have ever asked for in the hallowed halls of Eisenhower High School, and the man who introduced me to the wit and wisdom of Mr. Paul Harvey, my friend Paul Schaefer, who was on the retirement committee. My pleasure. Yes. The last two on the list are Peggy Campbell, the historian, and Patrick Walsh, who is a member at large. Congratulations to everyone from the officers list. Mr. President.
Thank you. Unfortunately, part of the cycle of life is that sometimes we lose people. And we're going to have a moment of silence to honor the memories of three people this evening. Dale Allen Coffey was a 30-year employee of the Yakima School District, and his obituary is attached to the board documents, and you can read it there. Timothy Escamilla and Delilah Minshew were students at Garfield Elementary, who we unfortunately lost in a tragic motor vehicle accident a week or two ago. So please give us a moment of silence in honor of those three people. Thank you. And thank you, Paul. We don't always receive all those notifications. It's nice to know that. Next up on our agenda, we have a report from the Department of Visual and Performing Arts, Dr. Webb.
Thank you, President Walker. Good evening, board members. Oh, thank you. Thank you for giving me a little bit of time to share a little bit about the fine and performing arts in Yakima School District and to share some of the joy that will see on the screen this evening in our students' work and their performances. Here we go. So of course we have our three levers for teaching and learning, which include professional learning communities, induction, mentoring and coaching, and principal supervision, which falls to all of our curriculums and all of our areas, including fine and performing arts. We lost our presentation. There we go. All right, now we're rolling forward. Excellent. So in the screen here, you see a very short, brief picture that shares the 11 anchor standards for the arts area. Culturally relevant pedagogy and inclusionary practices are part of this. And our instructional content is listed here just in the short form, of course, where there is a large book that has all the standards normally. We're proud to say that in our teaching and our learning in fine and performing arts, all of our staff are specialists in their own right, and they also have their own specific professional learning community. The arts, which include dance, media arts, music, theater, and visual arts, are shared here. It provides a fundamental part of our well-rounded education. Again, there's 11 anchored standards that we shared that define the general knowledge of skills in Washington's that students in Washington should demonstrate in the arts. Washington State Learning Standards for the Arts are an essential part of the framework in supporting learning goals. We're very pleased to have art offered in all of our schools in the school district, and along with classes, our students enjoy before and after school opportunities, such as painting and drawing. We are also pleased to say that our high schools participate in local, regional, and state art competitions, and both the middle and high school present a local art show. 2 middle schools have art clubs and both of them have chartered National Junior Art Honor Societies. The students in these pictures are showing off their skills and talents for their schools, everything such as the Valentine's Day presentation at Hoover, the winter concert at Wilson, and of course at Lewis and Clark as well. Playing guitar for our middle school art show, where we combine both fine and performing arts, their adjudications, and the spring concert at Franklin. All of the photos that you see here across there are students truly enjoying fine and performing arts. And again, we're very pleased to not only have the facilities and the ability to provide fine and performing arts for our students, but amazing staff. And we do greatly appreciate the fact that there's a great deal of support as well in all of those areas. And we thank the community as well as the board and our district for all of those opportunities. We're also very blessed to have performing arts in 2 of our high schools and all of our middle schools, as well as our elementaries in the district. Along with the classes, students enjoy before and after school opportunities, including Yakima, marimba band, and steel drum band. Our schools participate in local, regional, and state music competitions, and the state competitions include grades 3, 6, and 9. The Capitol Theater also provides entertainment and performing arts for grades 3, 6, and 9. And these are all by professional artists that are brought here to Yakima. And we feel very lucky in the fact that in our performance in our responsibilities and our communication, as well as our relationship with the Capitol Theater, we are proud to say that many of these pieces that they bring to us here in Yakima were the only stop on the West Coast. These are professional artists. They're often on their way to LA or some of the bigger venues such as London. And we're very proud to say that because of the connections that we have and because of the connections the Capitol Theater has, oftentimes our students are the only students on the West Coast that get to see some of these performances. So we feel very, very proud and very privileged to have that opportunity. Wanted to share just some of the pieces. There's hundreds and thousands of pieces that could have been chosen. I just pulled just a few, but I wanted to share that in our fine arts department, we actually have different mediums. We have pencil and pen, watercolor, acrylic, and clay. Students also draw, paint, use ceramics as an example, or photography, and sometimes even tear paper to present their own images. These are just a few pieces from across the grade levels that have been shared, and all of them have been either hung at an art show or provided and presented at the state level. And all of them are, of course, we're very proud of to have been seen in many of the local areas, including the Central Washington State Fair. We have a very large presence presence at the Central Washington State Fair because, again, of the hard work that all of our art teachers do and make sure that Yakima is well represented. I know you can't read them and I don't expect you to, but I just wanted to share a brief example of what are called classroom-based assessments. The state's art high school graduation requirements requires 1 credit in visual art and or performing art aligned to the high school arts learning standards. Starting with the class of 2019 and beyond, there were 2 credits of arts that were added, and they replaced, one of which may be replaced by personal pathway, which is newer in the progress in high school. Currently, art is only assessed through a formal process that is mostly formative. This is known as the classroom-based assessment, which you see up here. We are required to provide these CBAs to all of our students in art, and then we provide them to the state by turning in forms that show what we did and also how we performed the CBA. These are just examples. There's a high school one on the left, and a middle school one in the right, and then elementary one in the middle. And these are just some basic examples of what we would expect a student to be able to know or do as a sample of their skills in art. Just to share a little bit overall, our students receive fine and performing arts at each grade level in our building, as we shared earlier. In K-5, they have 2 to 3 shows each year in the music department, which includes singing and choreography sometimes and music. We have over 6,600 students in the elementary grades that receive this art in the performing version from our K-5 music teachers. In our middle school, music and performing arts, again, 2 to 3 performances per year. They also provide students as part of local competitions. There's over 830 students participating from the middle school. Our high school music and choir provide 3 to 5 performances each year. They also provide local and regional competitions, and they not only as hosting them, but also, of course, participating in them. And they have destination performances throughout. In fact, we have a group right now that is on their way back to New York to perform at Carnegie Hall from Eisenhower High School. We have over 700 students that participate in the music and choir portion. And lastly, of course, but certainly not least, in high school drama, again, we provide 2 to 3 performances every year, both musicals and standards. They often collaborate with each other, so that we'll have the choir, the drama, and or the band and orchestra providing a presentation from our students. And we have over 200 students performing in the drama areas from Davis and Eisenhower. Lastly, I'd like to share just a few of our celebrations overall. Our fine and performing arts students have programs that are probably the finest in the region, if not the state. They consistently win competitions locally through the Washington Music Educators Association and then compete at WIAA. Some of our students that are participating this year, we have several, so we have 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 solo winners that are headed for state right now. And we also have 6 ensembles, both large and small, that will be headed for state for competing at the local area. The regional winners in band, orchestra, choir both have group and solos, as I mentioned, and they're headed out. That will participate in late April. We also wanted to share just some brief highlights, which including some of the regional winners in the past have come from Yakima, and so have the state winners in the past. We also have this particular venue that I wanted to share. I wish I could have brought the video, but it would have made it too long. The state champions in the marching band competition from both Eisenhower and Davis this year and last year successfully. So we're very proud of them. They participate and compete in Everett. We also just wanted to share that of the arts, our first year back when we were still out for COVID and had a great deal of transition and transformation, and we had a lot of challenge that we had to overcome. We're very proud to say that music and choir and drama continued on, as well as orchestra. We were able to order, with the support of ESSER funds, masks, special masks. Of course, they had a small slit in the piece so they could still play their instruments, and provide them the ability to continue on with fine and performing arts, even in the midst of returning from COVID and recovering for COVID. So we greatly appreciate that that was provided and that we had that opportunity. Just in short, our art's been featured in many places, including the ESD here at 105, OSPI in the Capitol building, and just recently, Washington, D.C. I wanted to share at the top, the piece that you see at the top is an award-winning mixed media piece by Morgan Green, who was awarded the Congressional Art Competition Award for Silence, which is the name of the piece. Her work was proudly hung this last year in the Capitol building, still hanging there, I believe, in Washington, D.C. We're very proud of all of our artists, thespians, and musicians, past and present, and know that their years in the Yakima School District provided them with the best opportunities for both fine and performing art, as it is a priority and well supported by our board of directors, our district, and our community. With that, I greatly want to share with the board that we thank you very much for the support and all of the efforts that have been given to provide fine and performing arts for all of our students, K-12 in the Yakima School District. They've greatly benefited, and we are happy to say that we're one of the few districts that still maintains that as a high priority, and we look forward to many more years of that. Thank you. Are there any questions?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to thank you for sharing all of this information with us and with the community. The PowerPoint that you showed is available through Board Docs off of our district webpage. And I would encourage anyone who's watching or listening, if you wanted to dig a little deeper into that PowerPoint, that's where you would find it. I would also encourage the community, anytime you have an opportunity to sit in on a musical presentation, watch one of the wonderful theater presentations that we have at the high schools or middle schools, or even some of the elementaries are pretty amazing. Or if you have an opportunity to view some of the fine arts during the art shows that the schools put on, please take an opportunity to do that. It's amazing the quality of work that these children, these students bring to us, and bring to the public as a whole. So thank you for presenting to us today, and thank you also to all of those very hardworking performing arts teachers and music teachers and the jewelry maker and the potter and all of those people. I know I'm going to miss some, so I apologize for that. But all of those people that are there in the school, in the classroom, to help these students express themselves in ways that are particular to them. So thank you for presenting tonight.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Dr. Webb. I appreciate all of the work that you're doing to augment the arts in our district. Like Board Member Director Rice, the danger of mentioning anybody is that you leave somebody out. But what I will say is that I'm in a lot of different venues every week, and I happen to be over at the ESD 105 for a session, for a meeting. And they had art hung along the walls in the building, and typically it's all of the regional winners. And it did list regional winners, and I believe every piece in there was from Davis. So, and there were around 12 pieces. So it looks like there was kind of a clean sweep, and it's just amazing, to know the amount of work and effort that our students put in, but also our teachers, even those that aren't a recognition. We know that art is subjective, and it doesn't take away from the work of our other teachers. And I know that great things are happening across our district in our photography classes and others, but I did want to call out that I was in a venue that was pretty prominent in recognizing the work of students around the region, and it was pro Yakima. So thank you.
Thank you. I'd also ditto Martha's comments and Dr. Green's comments, but I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
How has the 24 credit graduation requirement affected participation in high school performing arts?
Well, because especially with the new Senate bill that has been introduced, 5878, which is, it's continuing, they've added to it. It started last year. We have enhanced the fact that art is now a required part of that 24. So it's not just that it bumps anything out, it's actually part of that 24. And the beauty of having that kind of put into hollowed words from the Olympia is that it takes all the things that we already knew were important and make sure that not only do we have students have art K-12, but they also have certificated staff K-12 to make sure that the quality is there. So the change is really just about not only adding those areas that give students the basics in art, as I've mentioned here tonight, but as I mentioned to you with Pathways, it also gives some alternatives. So as an example, art of metals may be a class that could be offered. So they're actually welding, they're doing manufacturing out in the welding shop, but they're creating pieces of art. So we're looking at expanding as much as we can, just like other school districts, so that each student is met with their appropriate needs and their appropriate interests and can still graduate in an area that they need, along with the art pieces that are added to that. So I don't know that it's changed. I think it really has supplemented and certainly complemented the fact that art is now not only a significant part of graduation, but for us, it's an even bigger benefit for kids as they receive a well-rounded education.
Thank you. A couple more questions too. Kind of
Yeah, President
related.
Walker, I'd like to add something to that very wonderful comments about what it looks like in the state and more particularly in our district. Having been in the Toppenish School District and then also had a conversation this week with a former superintendent in the Silo School District who was just there last year, and we were talking about the number of credits. And when you have 32 credits that are offered at a district and 24 to graduate, there is more kind of opportunity to take a variety of classes. So it does expand. If you're interested in the arts or if you're interested in technical skills, it gives more of those opportunities, including if a student struggles in one class, it does give credit recovery options also. So when you're asking about Core 24 or the requirement of having 24 credits and only offering 24 opportunities, like in Yakima, it does limit the opportunities for our students as compared to districts in the area.
Thank you. I have a couple, this is regarding elementary school visual arts. And in our elementary schools, are those taught by the classroom teacher or are they taught by a specialist? And a related question, if they're taught by the classroom teacher, is there any professional development available to them to really develop their art instruction skills?
So currently we're meeting the K-5 art requirements with performing art because each student has music 1 to 2 times a week, depending on the building and the size. Yes, those are specialists and yes, they're certificated. And those students then receive not only during the week, but then these special presentations and performances that you saw. The visual arts is a little bit more of a challenge because of course it requires a lot more staffing and room. And we are growing by leaps and bounds. We're kind of pushing out the doors because of the amazing programs that we've brought in, such as the dual language program. So one of the concessions is that art is going to have to be utilized or shared with students from a perspective of perhaps a specialist and or throughout, as you mentioned, with staff in a general classroom. So one of the things that we worked on this year is the STEM specialist, which we do have one in each elementary school, has provided art mixed in with math and or mixed in with literacy, and to some degree even just art projects that took them with science as well. And examples include a gal that was doing a watercolor project. She had them each do some painting with watercolor, and then they added a medium to see how it changed the watercolor. So salt, soap, alcohol, and there's one other medium that was used. So this kids had to add it to their paintings to see how it changed or how it absorbed. So she was a mixture of art and science. So we're doing our very best to add that art piece, the visual part of it in with our STEAM specialists, because that's what we have and we're working with right now. As far as the professional development, we've not had a lot of work in that particular area. Again, as I mentioned, there's 11 art anchor standards. So all of the K-5 staff are aware of them, but with their focus on literacy and math, the art has kind of become secondary at the moment. We know that we want to work towards that and become much more distinguished in getting art there. So we are working to resolve that with our specialists, as well as some of the other pieces that go, as I mentioned, that are outside the school day, like Yakima, which is orchestra with the steel drum band. So those are more on the performing arts as opposed to the fine arts. But that's where we're at right now, as we work through not only what ESSB 5870 is going to, but then just our sheer numbers and the space that we have in programs. So we look forward to doing that, but we also know we've got some challenges to work through before we can get an art teacher back in every elementary K-5. That is the dream.
Thank you so much. That's for a very comprehensive report and a very interesting report. So, any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, good, off the hot seat. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and thank you for your support of the Fine and Performing Arts.
I have reports from the board. Ryan, did you want to comment on the visit to Adams?
I actually have two brief reports this evening. The first we don't have a slide for, but I would make note that weekend before last, I was asked and had the opportunity to serve as a judge for the Regional History Day competition. And Matt Norling from Davis is the coordinator for that particular process. And it was a really fabulous opportunity to get to connect with community and students alike. They have students from as far away as Royal City and Ellensburg that came to that event and presented. There were at least a couple dozen community members that showed up to help adjudicate. And it was really exciting to see the kids get to talk about their exhibits and explain what they had come up with as they were going through the regional process, hoping to move on to state. So I wanted to say a thank you and a congratulations to Matt Norling from Davis for that work. That was very entertaining for me to get to participate in. And then if we go back in time just a few weeks, Director Walker and I got to sit in at Adams with Dr. Darling, Dr. Green, Principal Kaplicki and his team for a listening session with parents at Adams Elementary. And it was also a very fun experience to get to hear from parents, grandparents, guardians, individual, to see what they were able to contribute and to ask about. The three main questions were, how does Adams Elementary make you feel included? How does the Yakima School District make you feel? And how can the Yakima School District make parents feel more included? And the conversation ranged from everything that you would expect with academics and achievement down to just the simple scenarios of comings and goings on a playground and on the parking lot. And it was just fascinating because it's like everything else, you know, so many times things are mentioned or things are spoken of, and yet it's always anecdotal or in conversation, and it doesn't really happen. And you know, the few things that popped up from parents, both Dr. Darling and Dr. Green and Principal Kaplicki were immediately able to figure out exactly how to put the pieces together to solve those particular issues. So it was really fun to see, and it was really fascinating to hear from a very small but very committed group of parent volunteers who exemplify what you can do with a small committed group to include a very large community of parents and students and staff to achieve great things at Adams. And it was very entertaining for me to get to listen in on that. So I thank you guys for your work there and for the chance to be included in that. It tested some of my translation ability. That was good for me. It was a positive experience. But what I got was a fabulous evening, and it was a really great experience. So thank you for that.
And I'll just piggyback on those comments. It really was an enjoyable evening to meet the parents and see their perspective. I was especially pleased to hear how they feel that they live in a difficult neighborhood. In fact, they could cite that this happened at this house or this happened over at this house, and there are challenges in the neighborhood, but their kids feel safe at school. They feel listened to at school. They like being at school, and that was really important to hear. Also, the other thing that's encouraging is the parents love the dual language program. They're excited about it. And in other schools that I visited, there was another school, I can't remember which one it was, but they're implementing next year dual language, and they're excited about it. So it's the growth of that program and the results that they're seeing in the kids' language acquisition is remarkable. So I think we're on the right track with that. So there is a PowerPoint attachment in your board documents. I think we'll not go through that whole attachment tonight, but feel free to take a look at that, board members. So, and community members can see that too, because it is on the website. Okay, any other reports from the board?
I have a couple. Yesterday afternoon, I had the opportunity to observe the Superintendent's Student Advisory Council meeting at Eisenhower. There were 23, 25 students there from all over the district. And they were addressing topics like putting together a toolkit for teachers and staff to help students who are undergoing mental health issues. And so they're beginning that process. There are 3 things that they're working on. The student voice policy, the mental health toolkit, and I can't think of the third one. Student voice. Yeah. Sorry. No, certainly not. That portion of the meeting was quite informative. The students talked about those things that they see in their particular building or with their peers, or programs that the district has at the district level that they have suggestions for, or that they very much appreciated. One of them that really has still stuck in my very vague brain here tonight was that student activities at the high school level, I'm assuming it's the same at the middle school level, are at no cost to students. So there's no cost for the yearbooks. And we knew that because, I knew that because I can remember students coming and telling us that. I didn't realize there was no cost for prom. And there was a young lady there from Davis, I think so. She said she has a friend in California, and their prom tickets are $130 a piece. And she very much appreciated that there was no cost for the prom tickets, and that any student could attend the prom. I was very impressed with that piece. And some of the others were, kind of personal to each student. Some of them were more broad, but they pretty much all participated. This was not a shy group of kids, that's for sure. So the more recent project that they're working on is the beginning of putting together this mental health toolkit, mental wellness toolkit for staff. They're talking about doing a mental health week within the district and having it be a district-wide activity. So there's a lot of energy in that group, and it was really a pleasure to be able to sit and listen to them. I don't know if you have anything to add about that, besides the fact that I forgot the part that you were leading.
No, and thank you for allowing me to speak during the board update here. It was, if you're looking for examples of inequities in our district, all you have to do is talk to the kids, because they were really bringing up some things that I think would be of interest to this group. And I do hope that as these continue to happen, we will continue to reach out and offer those opportunities to come and hear the students. But even, talking about grading practices, about, what score in a certain class is an A, A minus, all the way down, and how that varies from class to class. They talked about weighted percentages within that, how tests are graded, how other tests, starter activities, homework, and just the inconsistencies in attendance in some cases. So, I mean, right away they were just calling out some issues that are very prominent and very complex. And as I'm hearing this and just thinking about the amount of shift and change that it takes to move a department, let alone an entire school or a district, when you're talking about grading practices. But everything that they were bringing up was very sound and well thought out, and presented in a way of, these are things that, you've asked for inequities, you've asked for what's working, which they shared, and they weren't shy about it. It was really nice to hear those comments come forward. So I just wanted to share a couple of those examples when they called out some things. There was a conversation about, Japanese classes at one school, not at the other, and we were able to say that that's not going to continue. That has been rectified via our teaching and learning department and their forward thinking. So it's nice when some of those topics come up and to find out that we're already addressing some of those inconsistencies.
If you have an opportunity to sit in on, listen to one of those, it really is quite informative. And then the other thing I have is a legislative update. As you know, things are, we're in week 11. So we're on the downhill slope, but that doesn't mean that things are slowing down at all in Olympia. One of the bills of focus that is beginning to heat up is House Bill 1550. It has to do with the transition to kindergarten program, or TTK. We have had, and many other districts in the state have had, transitional kindergarten. It's a different program. And the legislature has decided that the transitional kindergarten program goes away in August, I think, of this year. And any school district that wants to have any kind of program for a transition for students, 4-year-olds going into kindergarten, or young 5-year-olds going into kindergarten, they can participate in this transition to kindergarten program, but there are now a whole lot of other strings. There was a striker placed on this bill that struck all of the House language and inserted all language from the Senate, because that's where it is now. It's going to be heard in the Senate Ed Committee tomorrow at 1:30. And I still have questions about it that I'm not getting any answers to. At one point, before the striker came into place, there was no funding for transportation to get these little guys to the program. The program has to be an all-day program. School districts cannot use basic education dollars to pay for it. The Senate bill, the striker, included language that it has to have its own funding source from the state. So if there's no funding, I guess there's no transition to kindergarten program. There are a lot of districts that this is going to affect, including ours. A lot of children that will not be able to participate in it because of all of the strings attached to this transition to kindergarten program. I don't know, Superintendent Green, if you or Dr. Rodriguez have anything that you'd like to add to that? How it might affect us, or Anything else?
I think I'd just like to add that I have had several conversations with superintendents around the state to learn their perspective, those that are maybe a little bit more knowledgeable in that area. So I'm not relying just upon my own thinking, but those that have kind of led the way with regard to early learning. In addition, I was able to have a face-to-face, one-on-one with Representative Sharon Tomiko Santos of the House Ed Committee, and she is the individual that has really pushed the TTK through the House and doing so very effectively, I might add. So knowing that this is live and that it will be recorded, I think I'll refrain from any other comments because I do want to maintain relationships around the state and don't want anything floating out there. But I appreciate you flagging what is currently happening, and we're very hopeful that the Senate will really read through and take into account what's being shared around the state, including the many letters that have gone forward from different districts around TTK.
Thank you. So if you have a little free time tomorrow afternoon at 1:30, you could dial into TVW and watch that hearing. It could have some pretty significant effect on how we do business here in our district with the transitional program to kindergarten. So-
Excuse me, Martha. I'm just kind of glancing over the bill, and it looks like one of the reasons is that, let's see, that, well, districts are trying to close the gap, right? That's created by creating transitional kindergarten programs funded with state basic education allocations. However, all transitional kindergarten programs meet the high quality, age appropriate early learning standards. Is that what they're trying to change, or are they trying to reach more families and provide opportunities to early learning for all kids?
I think it's yes to both of those.
Okay.
I think they are trying to standardize the TTK
Mhm.
program.
Okay.
And a lot of, I guess by law, OSPI was accepting the transitional kindergarten programs through the funding stream for basic ed. And my understanding is that that doesn't meet the parameters of what is funded in basic ed. So part of the striker for the bill includes that there should be a visitation from Department of Children, Youth, and Families to every district that has TTK programs. I don't know what that visitation would include. And I don't know if in that visitation they would have findings, sort of like an audit. I don't know. None of that is clear in the bill's language.
I think they need to talk to Dr. Green, because some of the other things that they're wanting is to, let's see, require, I never heard this term, an early learning ecosystem, where you're partnering with other, I guess that's the term, with other learning services, state, federal, and local resources. And so I think the school district is already doing that, right? A lot of that.
I think we are. We partner with EPIC and the early childhood programs.
You're going to force me out of my shell.
I'm sorry.
You're absolutely right. We are, and many others are already meeting those complex relationships, and nobody wants to undercut that I know of. And I've yet to meet a superintendent that is working outside the realm of kind of pushing off the local providers. It wants to be hand in hand. I will say that it does feel like since TK has been around, transitional kinder, for over a decade, that this is the perhaps closing of a loophole that had been exploited by some very savvy districts in blazing the trail statewide for districts to have the opportunity to implement TK under basic ed funding. And with that ending and now requiring a competitive process per se that has much more oversight, I think that there's there are a lot of individuals very nervous about what this could mean. And I think there's growing concern for how this may impact the potential increase of students receiving or needing special services or language support, because those are primarily the individuals that we have focused on statewide in that TK program. And I think there's maybe a little bit of a misconception that students with language challenges or in need of special services are being deprived of that opportunity. And that's not the case anywhere that I've seen. And I know that there's some great concern north of up the I-5 corridor, up in the Blaine area, where transitional kinder is really the only service provider for around 120 kids, and what that could mean for their program, let alone programs across the state. But I know that that's one that's really on the minds of a lot of our superintendents up in the Northwest area. So you're right, there's a lot of items out there, and we do have a very long-term respected and acknowledged representative in Sharon Tomiko Santos, who is very interested in seeing this progress. And we're very hopeful that now out of the House, the Senate will have an impact on what it ultimately looks like. And hopefully it'll be favorable in maintaining what we're already providing to a large degree for our students.
Thank you. Any other questions from board members? Okay, that ends my report. Thank you.
Thanks for the updates. Raymond, did you have anything to report today? Okay, we'll move on to our superintendent's update.
Thank you. I have just some community information here today. We have the opening community celebration of Northwest Harvest, which is opening up their free distribution market. I would normally not share such a report with the board, but in lieu of our partnership with Northwest Harvest and what they mean to our community, I do want to let you know that they've extended an invite if you would like to attend. There is an RSVP link that's located in board docs on the superintendent update. And they would love to see you there for the ribbon cutting, which happens on April 4th. Starts at 1. They have an opening between 1 and 5 o'clock if there's anybody that would be interested in attending. So that's one piece that I wanted to share with you. In addition, speaking of our partnership with Northwest Harvest, and they constantly comment, James and Thomas, about our relationship here in the district and what we're doing as far as food security. We did have a wonderful ribbon cutting ceremony. Oh, no, it wasn't ribbon cutting. It was the signing ceremony today of the contract with Northwest Harvest. So we will begin. In fact, I'm going to have Stacy. I don't want to steal all of her thunder. So I'm going to have you. I'm okay. July 10th. Okay, I'll share it then. So yeah, July 10th, and our contract is going to be for 2 years. We're excited about what this means as far as being able to store effectively, have less loss of product, be able to order much more strategically, I guess I would say, a wider variety of food, and make sure that we're supporting our local partners as well. So that signing ceremony took place with several representatives of Northwest Harvest, and we had Assistant Superintendent Stacy Locke there, and our Director of Food Services, Cassie Davidson, was there also. And so it was really nice to go through that process. I believe there might be something on the website of the Herald per se, or maybe in the paper. I know that there were some photos taken, but we'll see if it makes the cut. But again, thank you for your support of our partnership with Northwest Harvest, and we're excited about what this will mean for our community moving forward, specifically our students. In addition, the last item that I have to share, I'll skip over the student voice piece. So thank you, Director Rice, for sharing that. No, absolutely happy to move on. We did have the board retreat here. I guess it was a little over a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. Seems like it's been a month ago, but just a very beneficial process. And I did share in the public content our PowerPoint, along with our equity definition, which is always included. That PowerPoint is something that maybe you would like to refer to at a later date, just to recall some of the things that we went over. I was able to go through the survey that came to the board after the session, and it was all very positive. A couple things that I just want to highlight is the question of this session has provided me with a clear picture and direction for where we are headed, and I support moving forward on improvements. We had 2 board members agreed with that, and 3 strongly agreed. So there was overwhelming positivity from you as board members on the session and having a direction heading forward around the goal to improve the Yakima School District monitoring system of board adopted goals, which was that number 1 priority. And along those lines, the other item I'd share is the question, the survey question said, I support action items being developed by the superintendent's leadership team. So we had 2 board members who agreed and 3 that strongly agreed with having our internal team then take the information and focus on improving the Yakima School District monitoring systems with board adopted goals. So we are moving forward in that process. We're thankful for our relationship with our consultant who came forward and led us through this process. And we'll continue to engage around addressing those monitoring systems and bring those to the board after presenting those to President Walker, who I meet with on a weekly basis. So again, thank you for that process. If you have any other questions about the survey or progress as we move forward in the interim, please do reach out. Otherwise, I will start bringing regular updates on our progress towards that board-directed goal. With that, I'll pass it back to President Walker.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. We have 2 reports from our financial person, Jay Cooper.
Good evening, everybody. Before I begin, just briefly on the transitional K issue, I think as Director Rice mentioned, that hearing is tomorrow. There are a lot of moving parts to the bill. I don't want anybody to get too worried until things are sine and die and the legislature is done. I think ultimately it became a budget issue for the legislature as schools are basically creating another half grade that weren't originally funded in K-12. And so that's some of the angst that you're seeing from your policymakers in that transitional K issue. But just to bring that to the light. This evening you get, hello, Jacob Cooper, Interim Executive Director of Finance. You get me for 2 presentations this evening. And the first of which is the monthly financial update. President Walker and I and Superintendent Green met about a week and a half ago to go over the presentation that you're going to be provided this evening. Continue to focus on streamlining the information and providing you what keeps you up at night, most importantly. So we discussed last meeting. First thing is our enrollment counts. Decided to move kind of a summary of the enrollment. You will see it graphically represented later in the presentation. But our enrollment is very, very close to projection, only about 40 basis points or 0.4% below budgeted, or 76. And as we discussed last meeting, you should see and will see an increase in our cash balance of about $7.5 million. That was promised as we were going to begin a significant draw on our ESSER funding and completed an IDEA grant for additional $1.5 million. Hold on just one second. And that is our enrollment trends as we discussed. Sorry, that very difficult for me to see. But again, as we discussed earlier, we have the highlights that within 0.4% of projected enrollment. Graphically represented is the same thing. That flat line is just the annual average of our projected enrollment across the school year. You see the blue just slightly below that, as we discussed. These are our budget versus actual for revenue. You can see in February, we are slightly above that projection. As we talked about, we had a larger than projected drawdown in our special education funding. So that would be an uptick in revenue. And everything else is moving along as projected. This is the keep you up at wake A night slide, cash. You'll hear me talk as your CFO. I have to talk about cash because cash is what's in your fund balance or your equity position, and is a signal to folks on the outside, both in the community and broader levels of what your current financial health is going to be, or at least it is during the fiscal year. So as was noted, most importantly, what I wanted to point out to you on this graph is that that line is headed in the right direction following our drawdowns to fund Davis Auditorium. So as you can see, we talked about cash should be by, I would say May, maybe June, will be very close to our green line, which is where we would like to be for projected cash flow. Are there any questions on the cash flow? Most importantly, from your governance seat, I wanted you to see that our cash is on an uptick as it needs to be, and then we will be very close back to projection in the springtime. Total expenditures on this slide, as you can see, slightly below projection. But moving along in that, I want you to focus your eyes, if you could, on that light blue bar. You can see our spending patterns as they move through the months, very stable, and what we'd anticipate given your current budget you've adopted. Our ESSER slides. You can see our ESSER slide has changed quite a bit since last meeting. Most importantly, there's an encumbrance amount of $10.6 million. That is the purchase order for Discovery Early Learning that has now been placed in, it was approved by OSPI for us to directly draw down the ESSER funds and is now part of the encumbrance. So most importantly as well, the balance on the right is the remaining total balance without encumbrances. Please note we have another $5.5 million to transfer out of ESSER funding that is not encumbered to complete the Davis Auditorium project. So though not encumbered, it is accounted for. But most importantly, your note is Discovery Lab has been, the purchase order has been cut and approved by you all. And then we have a balance of about $11 million for the remainder of the ESSER 3 award, excluding Dr. Jenny Rodriguez and her department's teaching and learning, the recovery, the learning set aside for 20%. As you can see, we're beginning to draw down that. There are some encumbrances or purchase orders against those funds. As the curriculum adoption process moves forward, though, you will see those amounts change as we begin our curriculum purchases for the next school year. Any questions on the overall financial picture? Now, briefly, it's a very important week for myself and budget staff. We should expect a budget by Thursday from the Senate, Monday from the House of Representatives, which will give us a very clear idea on IPD or COLA, which has a huge impact on our financial health. Additionally, there are bills that are still positive around special education in particular. But as Director Rice talked about earlier, there's a lot of movement still on all types of legislation, strikers, amendments, you name it. As we know this, as the session gets closer to end, things will get very interesting. So thus far, most of the special education bills have positive revenue for us. They vary significantly, though, based on the drivers and the caps for special education funding. So more to come there. My goal is if the Senate budget is dropped early Thursday, I should be able to have to you by Friday afternoon or Monday, at least a preliminary impact or ripple on what Yakima, on how we fared. So I have systems in place that should be able to grab the omnibus and turn it back pretty quickly so we get an idea of where we'll be, at least near term. So is there any questions on the overall presentation and anything on the legislature that you might be interested in?
Any questions from the board? Okay, thank you, Jay.
Next, you can't get rid of me quite yet, President Walker. Many have tried, but I'm still here at the podium.
I'm just thanking you for part one. I'm not trying to move you on.
So before you this evening for your review are the 2023-24 budget parameters. Per your policy statements. Oh, yes, sorry.
I'm not sure the correct document is in board docs. In board docs, under your presentation,
There's two.
there's two, the monthly report, which we just saw.
Yes.
But then the retreat PowerPoint text for March 23. Do I
Close
need
the
to?
first one out and go to the next report. It's separated. That retreat got into Jake's first report somehow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just go to the next
All right. Thank you.
agenda item.
I'll get there.
Where's
Keep going.
you bet? Okay.
Catch up.
So the board sets an annual expectation around our budget and its basic financial parameters. So we're going to go through those this evening. I have reviewed them along with Superintendent Green. These are the parameters that the board decided upon last budget cycle. I am a big fan of keeping financial parameters very stable. I always think governmental finance should be boring and predictable. That's my job. Boring, predictable, and transparent. Those three things. So to that end, I will review the board expectations for the budget development for 2023-24. I do not want to read them verbatim, but I also want to point out some of the few more salient items, at least from my financial lens. And of course, there is one measurement in here, which is the last one about your unreserved fund balance being at 5% or minimum. So that would be number 11. We not fail to maintain an unreserved fund balance of 5% or greater of the total general fund budget without approval. I believe that is a very sound, particularly since an unreserved fund balance. I may not have, historically, school districts, there is no perfect fund balance. It's the Cinderella of all numbers that go. The rating agencies or bond agencies want you to have about a 16% fund balance, a couple months of operating, 3 months of operating expense. Some districts run down as low as 2.5% or 3% of total reserves or budgetary capacity, or total budgetary capacity. I would recommend staying with 5% unreserved as a minimum, because that does allow you as a governing body or as a management team to reserve amounts above and beyond that, for example, if we know that are coming in the future. If we had curricular adoptions, for example, I've reserved those in fund balance, safety and security issues out in the future, capital improvements as an example. So I believe your fund balance and your equity thresholds are appropriate. I also believe, for what it's worth, as your Executive Director of Finance, that your tenets on how budgetary decisions are made are solid and sound, and I would recommend that they continue to move forward. The tenets touch on the accountability of the educational program, the learning environment and health and safety for staff, an equity lens on decisions, and then the teaching and learning impact and then also if we were to reduce or unwind the system, how we would do so and prioritize it. So the set and these, the 1 through 11 were I believe grabbed right out of your OPs and policies. They are not created out of whole cloth. They are also already part of your governance structure. So I would recommend these parameters continue for the 2023-24 school year, and you make no significant adjustments to them from my financial perspective. Are there any questions on the guiding budget parameters for the 2023-24?
I do have a question. Can you elaborate more on that, what the equity lens is? Because I have maybe my own understanding, but I just like some clarification on that. Does that mean schools with lower test scores get additional monies or more money than schools who are performing better? So I just want what you're talking about. Maybe you can clarify that for me.
I think equity from a CFO perspective can be difficult to articulate, but I will say this. In my role, I take the lead from my teaching and learning and education colleagues, and we are guiding resources to those portions of the population that need the most assistance. So I can provide them with not just equality, but equity of outcome. So that's what we are tasked with. And that's how my goal is to operationalize that. So as your chief financial officer, in this case, I take my lead from the education folks on where the gaps are, where the resources need to flow to. And in some cases, Director Navarro, it is about need. In other cases, it may be a population that has been underserved for a long time. So there is a lot of layers to that onion, but that's how I would believe how we make the decisions here in Yakima. And so, again, it is hard when you talk about equity and finances and then how you distribute resources. I think for me, it's a baseline resource, and then acuity after that is how I've always looked at distributing resources based on an equity lens.
Any other questions or
No
comments for Jake? Thank you, Jake.
You bet. And then, just as I said earlier, very important week for all of us. And we will see what our friends in Olympia have done with us, for us, or to us in the next little bit. So, thank you.
Thank you. And we have reached now the first opportunity for comment from the public on agenda items. Do we have any people signed up? Okay. Moving on to consent agenda. Just a brief statement here. Again, the consent agenda enables the board to efficiently deal with matters that have been delegated to the superintendent, but by law must be approved by the board. Items on the consent agenda are voted upon as one block and approved with one vote. Any board member has the right to remove any item from the consent agenda for separate discussion and actions. And included in the consent agenda are minutes from February 2023 meeting minutes, notification of approval of warrants for February, and approval of personnel actions, and budget status reports for February, the more detailed reports. Is there any need for removal of any item from the consent agenda? Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Liz, would you call the roll, please? Any further discussion? Okay.
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Director Rice,
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you all. Now we have a number of approvals to address. Some of these relate to some emergency repairs that needed to be made after winter's damage to some buildings. So we'll start with Anthony Murrieta, and we'll go with those emergency bills.
Thank you. Thank you very much, President Walker. Due to the extreme cold during the winter break, we had some damage to both Eisenhower and Franklin Middle School. I'm going to begin with Eisenhower. Believe that it was -2 degrees on this particular day where a damper froze, and then it continued to take in that extremely cold air, which then caused a water pipe within the HVAC system to freeze. As the building thawed, they then started to flood the building during a time where we were away on break. Some motion sensors is what triggered the alarm, and by the time our maintenance crew got in there, it had produced quite a bit of damage. Because this was something that had happened in an urgent situation, we then called Baxter Remediation and basically waived the process where we would typically post something in for a public notice and then have the waiting period to go out to all the different bids. We had to immediately stop the bleeding, for lack of a better term. So with that, the requested action of the Board of Directors approve Resolution 03.22.23, authorization to declare an emergency waiver of required competitive bidding for work and services related to water damage at Eisenhower High School. For the YSD strategic plan alignment, this aligns with Pillar 4 of the strategic plan, bringing the pieces together. The pillar requires safe, multicultural community for learning and work operations. A safe building in which to provide educational services aligns with this pillar. The fiscal impact is not to exceed $1.1 million to be reimbursed from the insurance company, less the deductible, with a split between the Eisenhower High School water damage repair and the Franklin Middle School elevator repair. We were able to actually combine this into the same claim because both of them were water damage created by the extreme cold. The background information is RCW 28A.335.190 and RCW 39.04 imposes certain obligation on the district with respect to competitive bidding. RCW 28A.335.190 paragraph 6 and RCW 39.04.280 authorize the district to waive the statutory requirements related to competitive bidding in the event of an emergency. In the evening of December 24, 2022, district staff were notified via security systems of movement in one or more classrooms at Eisenhower High School. Staff responded and found a large central heating coil had frozen and burst, resulting in major water damage to the upper 600 wing of the building. These unforeseen circumstances occurred through reasons beyond the control of the district, and they presented a real imminent threat to the proper performance of essential functions and were likely to result in material loss or damage to property and or physical injury to persons if immediate action was not taken. The district was required to engage in emergency cleanup and repair to prevent further damage and to prevent mold growth. We also have our internal staff been working on this periodically as things change. They've had to go in there and remediate. And this is going to be something that's going to be ongoing for approximately a year. I think this being the second urgent situation that has come on since I've taken over that department, one of the lessons I've learned from this is I will brief you on it the following board meeting to give you the heads up about what has taken place. Back in December, we didn't have a dollar figure to give you. This is the first time that we've actually had an overall estimate of what the cost will be. But again, go on the record of what took place and what the urgent issue is, and to expect something like this somewhere down the road, similar to what happened last year with the heavy snow that busted the beam in Washington. We knew about the incident when it took place. We didn't know about the cost until months later. So with that said, would you like me to read resolution 03.22.23, or is that acceptable as part of the documents that have been loaded in board docs over a week ago?
Dispense with reading the entire resolution in detail.
Shall I wait for a motion and for you to move on this, or shall I then move on to action item regarding Franklin? It is the same claim, but they were considered two separate issues.
Okay.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution 03.22.23 with a correction on the action letter attached to reflect an appropriate date of March 21st, 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 3.22.23. Can we call any other discussion? Questions? Okay, Liz, you want to call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Director Rice,
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the next resolution, 0.04.22.23. Authorization to declare an emergency waiver of required competitive bidding for work and services performed related to water damage to the elevator at Franklin Middle School. The action requested is that the Board of Directors approve resolution 04.22.23, authorization to declare an emergency waiver of required competitive bidding for work and services related to water damage to the elevator at Franklin Middle School. This aligns with the YSD Strategic Plan Pillar number 4 of the Strategic Plan, bringing the pieces together. The pillar requires safe, multicultural community for learning and work operations, a safe building in which to provide educational services align with this pillar. the fiscal impact not to exceed $125,000 to be reimbursed from the insurance company less the deductible, which is split between Eisenhower High School water damage repair and Franklin Middle School elevator repair. Do you want all the same RCWs, or can I skip that part and just move to the next piece?
I think we can skip that.
Okay.
I think we can entertain a motion at this point.
I'm good with that.
You've had a full explanation of
The board,
Just for the sake of argument, the freeze caused the sprinkler head to burst and then flood the elevator shaft.
Right.
Just for the record.
the board is being asked to approve resolution 04.23.23, authorization to declare an emergency waiver of required competitive bidding for work and services related to the repair of damages caused by water damage to the elevator at Franklin Middle School, and I so move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 04.23.23. Any further discussion or questions?
I would note that we're saying 04.23.23, but the action letter says 04.22.23.
Okay, do we have just a typographical?
Again, the hits keep coming. It was the same typo, I believe.
Okay.
Assume
Thank you
today
for the
was the
clarification.
22nd, not the 21st. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Glad those realtors watch the details. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Would you call the roll, please, Liz?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Director Rice,
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Moving on, we have Assistant Superintendent Locke and approval of a selected service provider.
Thank you, President Walker, and good evening, Board of Directors. What I have before you as an action item tonight is a repeat. We had Agnetics before, and so this is a request for the Board of Directors to approve the selected RFP proposer and grants approval to contract with Agnetics for the next 5 years to provide E-rate eligible network infrastructure, hardware, and support services. And again, we currently have Agnetics. If we look at the fiscal impact to the district, it will be $708,942.8 with the federal E-rate program funding the remaining $4,017,339.71 over the 5 years. Below, you can see what it will cost the district in year 1 through year 5, 2023 to 2024 to 2027 to 2028. Any questions that Andy can answer?
And there he is.
There he is.
Any questions for this item? Do I hear a motion?
I move that the Board of Directors approve the selected RFP proposer and grants approval to the contract with Agnetics for 5 years to provide E-rate eligible network infrastructure, hardware, and support services in the amount of it's the $4 million number, right?
The number for the district
okay.
is the 708,000.
708,000.
942.28.
Okay.
And then the E-rate will pay for $4,017,339.71.
But we're approving the 708,000 number, right? So in the amount of $708,942.28.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded to approve the selected service provider and contract for MIBS. Would you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Director Rice,
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
The second item, thank you, the second action item I have is, again, this service provider is currently providing for us in the district. They're big, what's it called? Big, Andy, what's it called? Big Fat Beam. Fat Beam, thank you. Fat Beam is the name of the
Fat
provider.
Beam.
Yes, name of the provider. I see it's not on this document, so I knew it was Fat Beam. We're looking for that the board would approve the selected RFP proposer and grants approval to contract with Fat Beam for 5 years to provide E-rate eligible WAN and associated support services. And if you look at the fiscal impact to the district, it will be in the amount of $100,632 over the 5 years, with the federal E-rate program funding paying the remaining $905,688 over 5 years. If you look at the below, you'll see the monthly reoccurring charges at for Fat Beam will be $16,772 per month. The 10% cost for the district will be $1,677.20 on a monthly basis over the next 5 years, for a total of $1,006,320 over 5 years. Any questions Andy can answer?
Any questions? Sir? Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve the selected RFP proposer and grant approval to contract with Fat Beam for 5 years to provide E-rate eligible WAN and associated support services.
Second.
Just one discussion question. The federal E-rate, this contract is for 5 years. I'm thinking long-term, when the 5 years are up, is that federal E-rate support going to continue? Or is, when we're looking at buying these kinds of services in the long-term future, is that going to be totally a district responsibility?
I'll let Andy speak to that. He's worked with E-rate over the years and done a phenomenal job.
E-rate has been around for, I believe, this will be its 26th year. And so they are only looking to strengthen E-rate in various areas. And so I would say with certainty that we're definitely going to continue to receive these services. And should they signal any differently, we would work with Jake to create an initiative that could move that forward. But for right now, this is the most cost-effective and best way for the district to receive these services. Okay, by far.
Thanks for the clarification. Okay.
Thank you, Andy.
Okay, we can call the roll unless there are any other questions.
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Director Rice,
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. That concludes my request for this evening.
Thank you. Okay. And now we have the interlocal agreements for the state of Washington and YSD. Dr. Darling.
Thank you. Good evening, board. So the RCW outlined in this request essentially is a agreement with us and DCYF that any students that are experiencing foster care or similar situation have the ability and the right to remain within that school district, even if they're moved in a home that is not within that school district boundaries. And so this is an interlocal agreement that we're entering with DCYF to maintain the letter and the purposes of this RCW. So we are requesting that the board of directors grant permission to enter into an interlocal agreement, regional educational agreement between the state of Washington Department of Children, Youth, and Families, and the Yakima School District, and the interlocal agreements under RCW 39.34 approve board approval, require board approval.
Okay. Any questions?
I don't recall, is this the first such agreement or is this a continuation?
I honestly don't remember if we've done this last year as well.
Okay.
So Superintendent Locke said that this previously was an enrollment, and because this is now under Omar and Omar's under me, this is the first time it's coming from me. That's why it's coming from me the first time. But previously, this was handled through our enrollment services.
Thank you.
Well, it's pretty much a legal obligation. I'm curious as to how many, that includes transportation of those students, doesn't it? If they move out of district and they're still enrolled here, they can continue to attend here, and we're obligated to provide transportation.
Yeah, we work with the foster families to make sure that happens.
Do we have a sense of what that's costing us?
I don't, but I can get that information.
Okay, that we don't need that now, but that would be kind of interesting to look at. Okay, do I hear a motion?
So I move that the board of directors grants permission to enter interlocal agreement, regional education agreement between the State of Washington Department of Child, Youth and Families and the Yakima School District, interlocal agreements under RCW 39.34, required board approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the interlocal agreement between the State of Washington and Yakima School District. Any further question or discussion?
I think this is a very important agreement, right? That they often call this group of students the silent community or the silent group because they often get overlooked and underserved and so forth. So I'm happy to know that we're really working hard to provide the best possible services and quality education to this group of students.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to call the roll, please, Liz?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Director Rice,
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Next up on approvals is approval for someone named Director Navarro Jr. to travel out of state to I believe the National Association of Latino Educational Officials? Elected officials. Thanks for clearing up that acronym for me. That's one of my goals, is to make sure we know what acronyms we're dealing with. So to attend their national conference, I believe that's a standard one that you like to attend every year, isn't it?
Yes, I've been a member of that for the last 16 years, and then there was previous board members as well, that including Reverend Davis, who's in the audience today. He's also been a member, and also previous, it still is. So, and I think he'll be there at that conference as well. So,
okay. Well, we get to approve that anyway, huh? So, okay. So, do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
And I believe you have to abstain from voting on this. Yeah. Okay. So it's moved and seconded to approve travel for Director Navarro. You want to call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
I abstain.
Director Rice,
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1, 3-1.
Okay. Thank you. And bon voyage. Okay. Second opportunity for comment from the public.
You'd like to think that was true, right?
I'm sorry, there'll be a short travel delay. Okay, no need for comment from the public. Okay, moving down to policy governance issues. We have two policies to review tonight. I believe they're pretty short. We have policy 1000.3.8, cost of governance. Essentially, I'm not going to read the entire document. I believe you can read that. Essentially, it says that the board will invest in its own governance capacity, and that board skills, methods, and supports will be sufficient to assure governing with excellence. and costs will be prudently incurred. Are there any comments on the existing policy? Any concerns or additions, subtractions? Okay, I believe that will come up for a Survey Monkey. Okay, and you already see that by Friday? Oh, tomorrow, okay. So it needs to be in by Friday, correct? Okay. Thanks for clarifying. Second up is process for addressing board violations. And I believe we rewrote that one not very long ago. Last year, okay. Okay. Any questions or concerns about that policy? Anything
Did
you
we
wanted
not
to add?
revise or edit this? I thought we did.
edited this.
So this might be an old version and
Is
not
this the old version or is this the edited version?
I'm not sure. I mean, if my memory serves me correctly, I thought we made the edits, but I could be wrong.
You know, it was adopted July of 20. No, I remember discussing this particular policy. We may want to table this. Can we table this one and make sure we have the right one?
I think the work we did might have been on a different policy is
Okay.
what's coming to mind, but I don't recall clearly.
Well, why don't we take this at face value, do the Survey Monkey on it? And then if we find we have, I think it may have been addressed similar concerns, but it might have been a different one. Okay, we'll just go ahead and process this one and then we can review. Yeah. Okay. That concludes the regular part of our meeting. We do have a need for executive session to review performance of an employee. I'm thinking 30 minutes.
I move that we adjourn to an executive session for 30 minutes to address performance of an employee.
Should we go 40 minutes? Oh, I'm kind of reading the room and I'm seeing some questions if 30 minutes is sufficient.
Well, I'll second the 30 minutes.
Second for 30 minutes?
We can extend if we need to,
We
or
can
move
extend.
it to another time.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded to adjourn to executive session for 30 minutes. Call the roll, please.
Director Beckett,
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Director Rice,
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, and let's take a 5-minute break. We've been meeting for a long time.
Where are we going to meet?
We will meet in the professional library.
Okay.
We have no indication about Director Villanueva, so she was. Oh, she's out. Okay, so she was going to join that executive session as well. But, okay, so we'll see you in the library in 5 minutes.
The board is extending executive session 10 minutes.
Meeting is adjourned.